Good evening, you fantastic and glorious degenerates of this floating rock that we call Earth. Welcome to the Cajun Libertarian Show. I am your host, Noel Olin, aka the Cajun Libertarian, and here we are. Tonight we have an absolutely phenomenal guest who I've had on a couple of times before, and she's knocked it out the park every single time. So tonight we will be talking with Angela McArdle, who is now the chair of the National Libertarian Party, coming up next on the Cajun Libertarian Show, and we are live. Yes, and we are back. So, real quick to kick it off, let's check out some of the words from our sponsors. First up, Joe Solosky, Joesololoski for Pennsylvania Governor. The key to Pennsylvania's success, my longest running sponsor. Thank you, Joe, so much for sponsoring the show. If you want to look at multiple options in the state of Pennsylvania, then check out Joe Solosky. Joesololoski, the key to Pennsylvania's success. Check him out. Do it today, do it tomorrow, but do it soon. Also, Gap Armory. Gap Armory carries a wide variety of parts and accessories. Whether you're looking for build kits for 3D printed firearms, optics, outstanding level 4 body armor, or anything in between, they have you covered. Gap Armory is a libertarian-owned and operated business. They also accept Bitcoin. Gap Armory has the gear you need to bridge the gap in your defense preparedness. Get what you need today at gaparmory.com. That's gaparmory.com, GAPARMORY.com. That's gaparmory.com, GARMOR.com. And last but not least, which is what I'm wearing right now, is SYDO.com. It's a t-shirt company with the widest and best variety of Liberty-owned t-shirts. I'll show it to you. This is my newest edition right here. It says, abolish the ATF. Very simple. Here it is. Glorious. Fantastic. Go check them out. DSYDO is a libertarian-owned t-shirt company with designs intended to start a conversation. Use code Cajun15. That's CAJUN15. Cajun15. CAJUN15 for 15% off of your order at disdo.com. That's DSYDO.com. Go check it out. Now, without further ado, let's bring on the woman of the hour, the national chair of the Libertarian Party, Angela.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on again. Thank you so much. You've got a lot going on. First, before we get started, I want to congratulate you. Since we last talked, you were the winner of the debate, of the LNC chair debate that I hosted, which had literally thousands and thousands of views, which I was really astonished by. And when I walked out of the debate, I talked to my wife, and she was like, "Oh, Angela won that hands down, easily." And so I'd like to say that I, maybe not played a part in your success in winning, but I think that's more for you to claim.
I like it. I'll let you have it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Also, since we last talked, you have now become very pregnant and very engaged. So, congrats on both of those as well.
Thank you very much. Having a baby at the end of November, maybe beginning of December. I suspect he's going to stay in there a little bit longer and take his time coming out, but we'll see. No idea.
He's going to cook a little bit longer than normal.
Yeah, just like go ahead and cook. Take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time baking.
That's so funny because our first son, we did that, and when the due date came, we told the doctors, "No, we're done. Let's induce. Let's induce now." And so we induced, I think, on the day of the due date. And so I totally get it. Those boys sometimes they like to cook a little bit longer than normal. But either way, congratulations. I cannot be more excited for you and your new motherhood adventure. I think it's your first. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
oh yeah, definitely. First
Definitely
one.
first. That's awesome. I'm so excited for you. It is such a blessing and an honor to go through the whole process, right? From start to finish. From the day that you find out to the ultrasounds to the everything in between and then the baby being born and then you hit the 2 and 3 year olds, which like we were talking about earlier, I have the 3 year old that was taking a nap in the bed who is being absolutely horrendous as of late. She's so spoiled. But it's all a journey. It's all so much fun. Congratulations. I cannot wait for you to experience all of that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's I got to tell you, I'm pretty darn focused on work, and so it's probably
Yeah.
going to be quite a shock when it happens.
I can imagine. Like you're very very focused on work. You're a very focused individual.
Yeah.
I knew that from the first time that I had you on the show, which is hell, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10, maybe a year ago, when you were the chair of the L.A. County Libertarian Party. You
Yep.
have decided to move and leave California and move to Texas. Why
Yep.
is that?
Okay. So it was pretty much a baby decision. It's just we were living in a very nice place in Newport Beach, but with the cost of living, we were going to have to make adjustments, and it was much easier financially to just move. So we're in a 4 bedroom house now, and it costs less than our 1 bedroom apartment. And the
Wow.
cost of living in Austin, Texas is not cheap. But that's how high the cost of living was where we were at with taxes, and now we don't have income tax here, and there's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, those are the real obvious points of why you would leave California for Texas. So the unfortunate part is there's a lot of people on this planet or in this country that do not understand those points that you just laid out. That
Yeah.
it's so ridiculously out of pocket expense to even live in California to where you can move to Texas and rent a 4 bedroom house for the same price.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
so
why
crazy.
why do you think that that's happening in California? What I mean, I think we all kind of know, but we want some firsthand experience as to
Okay.
what in the world's going on.
So it costs a whole lot to live there. Cost of living is really high. So the income tax is the highest in the country. It gets up to 11%, the state tax, depending on how much you
Wow.
make. Yeah, it's really high. Um, the regulatory capture on the housing industry is insane. It's just like next level. And all they want to do is just put more regulations on it to fix the problem. We've got a quote unquote housing crisis,
Yeah.
definitely. But
Yeah.
we have housing. It's just too expensive for anybody to live there. It's kind of complex. So, the way that it works, especially in the city of LA, is you have very large development companies that work hand in hand with city council. That's called cronyism. And
Right.
the city makes it impossible for anybody besides those guys to engage in major development projects. So those guys build very expensive luxury condos and luxury apartments. We're talking $2,000 for a studio apartment. And no one, with a family, unless you're both working and you're both making really good salaries, you can't afford to live anywhere decent. So, the nice places are still basically like concrete cell blocks. The luxury living
Right.
it can be very nice, but it's not family friendly, if that makes sense. So people just have to leave. And then with the lockdown, so many small businesses were destroyed. And you've seen some large industries leave over and over because of all of the aggressive business regulation. Like Toyota was a big company in California. They left several years ago. They moved all their operations elsewhere. You've seen Elon Musk move. There's just a lot.
Yeah.
So that's just, it's like you can't afford to live anywhere. You get your income robbed from the state on top of obviously federal income tax, and then you lose your job. So what are you going to do? You're just going to have to leave.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the only option, is to leave and not
Yep.
partake in such a oppressive in such an oppressive system that robs your income and then skyrockets there's many comments here talking about this racketeering, there, government housing crisis. That's all very real. Um, are they going to recover in California, or is that state going to fail? In
I
your opinion?
think I think it'll probably recover after it fails. There's all kinds of rumors too about whether or not the recall election was rigged. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on it. There's definitely a really strong resistance movement, but the people who are, I don't even it's not even accurate to say that they're happy with the way things are. People who are ideologically, like politically entrenched in progressivism, are not willing to examine themselves or the policies that they're pushing and say this is a mistake. Even when they complain and say that they don't like things, they just think we didn't do it hard enough. There were people who signed Gavin Newsom's recall petition who did it because they thought he didn't lock us down hard enough. They wanted someone more
Oh my!
progressive in.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's
That,
and where do you even go from that? I'm not sure. It's difficult to have a conversation with someone who is that deeply entrenched in their ideology, because they're not really willing to consider. Like sometimes we have to engage on the battlefield of ideas all the time, but there are a
right.
lot of people who do not want to. They're not interested in it. They're just really, really brainwashed. It's rough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's really the only way to explain it, is that they're just that brainwashed. They
Yeah.
keep asking the same entity to fix the problems that they created. I can't state that enough. I do it all the time. I'm sorry. It bears repeating every chance we get. Like, you're asking the same people, the same structure to fix the problem that they created. That's not how this works. So I applaud you for leaving California. I know that it must be incredibly difficult for you and your family, but so worth it.
It was frustrating. I mean, I was really committed to everything that I was doing in LA. I
Right.
I love the Libertarian Party. We have, as awful as the government is, we have an excellent liberty scene in Southern California. It's really great. The California LP has been improving steadily over the last couple of years. They have, like a decent budget. They have candidates who run. They're also running people at the local level. Like they get it, but
Right.
it's just, it's at a certain point. It was like, okay, Angela, you're going to do the national party. You're invested here. You're invested there. Like you're gonna have to invest a little bit in your family, and that meant making a judgment call that I was just like, because my
Right.
opinion is always like, well, you guys are the ones that suck. Why should I leave?
Yeah, yeah, and that's valid. That's a valid objective stance, because
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And a lot of people feel that way. I talk to a lot of people from New York and Washington and DC and Seattle, all across the country. They all feel the same way. But at the same time, we're watching in real time blue areas getting bluer and
Yep.
red areas getting redder.
Yep.
And so we have choices to make. And for me personally, and feel free to disagree with me on this one, 100%. But for me personally, who's lived in a very deep red state through the COVID regime, I'm very appreciative
Right.
of where I'm at, because we suffered no lockdowns, almost no businesses closed, businesses instituted their own mask mandates, and I was able to pick and choose who I wanted to go to. You know, sorry. I
Yep.
know we like to pretend like the left and the right are the same bad, and in a lot of sense they are. But in some senses, when it comes to literally crushing the economy and people's lives, there was very little difference, or there was a big difference between red and blue areas for me personally.
Absolutely. And we saw the difference in California county to county, right? So LA County, it was absolutely atrocious. Probably, yeah, the worst in California, one of the worst in the country. It was LA County and New York City. It was like, they're like in a competition to see who was the most awful. And just a few miles away, you have Orange County. And now they were still locked down, but they basically just like turned a blind eye to businesses that opened. They didn't
Yeah.
they didn't care that much. If somebody was going to say, "Screw it, I'm opening my business. I'm not instituting a mask mandate," they didn't send authorities after them. They were like, "Whatever, this is just not worth it." And they didn't re-lock down. And once they lifted the mandates, once they lifted the lockdown, that was it. They didn't re-lock down. So it did make like quite a difference, which is why I ended up moving a few miles from LA to Orange County at the end of 2020. It's
Right.
what you have to do, to survive.
Yeah, and this is what's psychotic to me. Like, we're still having this conversation about
Yeah.
you had to do this just to survive because of literal government interventionism, and we're still having this debate.
I
We
know.
still have to have this conversation. This is psychotic. What are we talking about?
It's wild, right? And I feel like this is why controversial topics like national divorce get pushed, because we've all lived through 2 years of seeing very cultural differences play out in different areas of the country. And we're having to choose. I want to live here, not there. This place destroyed my business. This place ruined my family. This place, whatever. I went bankrupt. This place over here, nobody had those problems. When it comes to spending, when it comes to war, the left and right they're pretty much the same. But when it came to lockdowns and those sort of policies, Democrats were much, much worse. Now, there were a lot of Republican governors who still locked down.
Yep.
Shame on them. That was disgusting and awful. They lifted it sooner in response to public outcry. So I'll take that over nothing. I'll take it over nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll take it over nothing for sure. And one of the things that pissed me off the most was going back and finding out that our own party, which is the most liberty loving party, the most freedom embracing party, sat back and said nothing. Actually, they didn't say nothing. They said some things in support of
Yes.
this unbelievable nonsense that destroys people's lives and liberties. So I'm very on board with the new messaging, very on board with the I hate to say quote unquote anti government stuff, because that kind of gets us flagged on internet, but who cares? I'm probably followed by a dozen government agencies at this point. But why did they do that? In your opinion, and if you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but it was so frustrating for me to
Yep.
hear the most pro liberty party that the planet has ever seen to just submit and bend the knee to the freaking government over a quote unquote crisis that is obviously playing itself out in real time, where people like you and I, we were telling you the whole time, this isn't real, this isn't working, they're lying to you, these are insignificant facts. What happened?
People were just afraid. They were afraid that speaking out against it was going to get us in trouble, that people wouldn't like us, not feeling secure in our beliefs, right? And I personally think that a lot of people on the former LNC were okay with lockdowns because of their own personal beliefs. And we got to be really careful about that. You got to be really careful everybody's going to have a preference about something, but when it is absolutely anti-liberty, you can't adopt that as a national,
Right.
there's,
Message, yeah.
yeah, you just can't do it. There's plenty of things that I don't like. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go and say, yeah, well, let's endorse it. It's just not. It's not the way you run a national organization. You got to stick to the platform. You got to stick to the principles.
100%. I was appalled, and I wasn't actually involved with LP National or Libertarian Party dove off head first like I am now at that point in time. But as I look back, I'm like, this can't be real. I was
Yeah.
stunned. I'm shocked. Like, this is what we were saying. We can't do that. This country, this earth, and people misunderstand. They underestimate the power of liberty and freedom that the United States of America provides. That idea that we provide for the rest of the world, and we totally blew it. I was shocked. I was appalled, and just disgusted. So, with that being said, thank you very much for being much more anti establishment. That's probably the best way to put it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have all of the classical liberals and all of the left who we've looked up to for years saying we're anti establishment. And then when the push came to shove and it was
No.
time to be anti establishment, they bent, they kneeled, and they broke. And no thank you, hard pass on that. I will not bend or break. I will continue to be anti establishment, and so is this party now and forevermore. Amen. I want to ask you about some kind of following the same lines here. What happened in Virginia with the technical stuff and the funding from the LNC? Because apparently that's kind of a topic, and I want you to address that and put people's minds at
Yeah.
ease.
So, how long has it been? A couple weeks, maybe a little bit more. The leadership in the Libertarian Party of Virginia was very split on whether or not they wanted to stay with the National Party. And by a slim majority, they voted to dissolve the corporate entity of the party. So, this is interesting, right? People think, oh, they disaffiliated. What they did was they voted to dissolve their corporate status. The party has been around a long time. The corporate status was started, I believe, in about 2015. Party been around longer than that. But there was all this drama with these like GOP wannabe libertarian guys who had started the incorporation, and then they passed it to someone in the party, and he was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll take hold of it so that no one else can take it." And it didn't really seem very useful, honestly. They didn't do anything with it, as far as I can tell.
Right.
Nobody really knew. Nobody really voted. There was no formal vote on whether or not they wanted to be incorporated. So these guys were really salty. They don't like the National Party. They don't like me specifically. They voted to dissolve the corporate structure as like a big FU to everyone. And so people flipped out, and it made it all over the media. They were like, oh my gosh, the Virginia Party doesn't exist anymore. It's not there. It's literally one piece of paperwork that someone signed and turned in against the protest of everyone else on the board, and without the knowledge of most of the people in the party, which was not cool. That's not good leadership right there.
Right.
So that happened. But the party's fine. They're still going. They're going to have elections and elect them to fill all the vacancies on the board that remain. They're going to do it everything above the belt. They're going to do it by the books. They're going to have a special election, I think, in a couple of months. But until then, like they're still chugging along. Their website is up. I think it's lpava.org. I think that's their new website. But we kept all of their data at the National Party once I think their domain went down. Once that happened, we still had all their data, and we just kind of held it back, and we're like, tell us when you're ready for it, sign your paperwork, NDA, whatever, and then here you go, have it back. So
Right.
I think one good thing that came out of it is that most people agree it was way over the line. You shouldn't do something like that. And it was pretty unifying for the rest of the people in the party, regardless of caucus affiliation or whatever, how long they've been in the party. Pretty much everybody was like, that was super not cool. It's not okay to trash us in the news. It's not okay to say people are racist or alt-right or whatever. um, and they blamed controversial statements by New Hampshire, and people in Virginia is like, that's got nothing to do with me. Why am I getting punished because you don't like someone else's mean tweets? That's your personal opinion. So I'm optimistic that, with as badly as that went, I hope that that's a lesson to anyone else who's looking at doing similar things. That take note, it didn't go over very well. The membership didn't appreciate it. It was wildly unpopular, and there's a question as to whether or not it was illegal. We don't know yet. We're still chatting with lawyers about it.
Very good. Good on you. Make sure we right that ship. And for
Yep.
those of y'all watching and listening, and there's going to be hundreds and thousands of people that catch this download later. Awesome, incredible. I guess I'll take that opportunity to say, if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the share button, and make sure you subscribe to this channel, because I have awesome guests like Angela McArdle on all the time. Um, Incredible. So be sure to do that. However, I was I was simultaneously not shocked and shocked at the same time by why we're continuing to go through this outrage. All
Yeah.
these people, if you're that mad about the direction of the party, then why are you still involved? And if your only reason to be involved is to tear us down, then your objective in life is garbage. Maybe
Yeah.
find something in your life to do productive for you instead of tearing somebody else down. Am I wrong on that?
I don't think so. I mean, people have talked about whether or not it's a distinction in the party between left libertarians and right libertarians and Mises Caucus and whatever, Prags. I think the real distinction in the party is people who respect the party's rules and bylaws and infrastructure, and people who don't. There are people who are absolutely willing to cheat, burn things down. It's very much like King Solomon, the woman screaming, cut the baby in half. I don't care. If I can't have it, no one can.
Yeah.
And it's a real sickness. It's a real sickness. It's unfortunate that people have it, but to the extent that it's there, the only way to fix it is you got to cleanse it. You got to shine light on it. You got to cut off the dead parts. Like they're leaving on their own, and so they're leaving in a really ugly way. But at least we're getting it over with. And I think I did underestimate the extent to which people were willing to cheat to get their own way. That is a real bummer to me.
Yeah, I can only imagine so. And to be quite honest and quite frank with everybody and you as well, Angela, I only see that coming from the quote unquote left libertarians.
Yep.
There's a lot to criticize on all fronts. Obviously, we are human beings. Everybody's going to fail. But the maliciousness and the just disdain for certain points of views coming from our freaking party, sorry, it only seems to be coming from one side. Is there a way that we can come together with these people in your mind? And if so, how?
Well, some of them, yeah, and we have some people like people who are like a little bit more eco-friendly, green libertarian
Yeah,
types who they don't behave this way,
that's
but
right.
it's like the Antifa of the party has reared their heads.
Yeah,
So I don't know if there's a way to unify, because I feel that we genuinely have different values. And I don't mean cultural values. I mean about like fundamental understandings of right and wrong and what you can and can't do, like what line you should cross. Like I'm not okay with cheating. It's not okay to cheat, break rules, deceive people, and then scream haha in your face national divorce like you wanted. It's like, no, no one said cheating is okay. Like, when you leave peacefully, peace implies you're not breaking rules, fraud, you're not stealing. That's what peaceful is. That's what I would like. Like if people want to leave the party, I encourage them to do it peacefully. My preference, obviously, would be for as many people to stay and join with us, and take up this mantle of fighting for individual
Right.
liberty.
Right. I mean, but the problem is for me. Um, Let me backtrack a little bit. 100% agree. 1000% agree. I want every person on board as possible with a wide variety of demographics and ideologues that we can have under this umbrella that is supposed to be pro 100% individual liberty. I absolutely want that. Um, I'm just having a difficult time being able to communicate peacefully and intellectually with progressives
Yep.
and even within our own party. And I'm sorry if that offends people. I was going to say you, but I'm talking to you, Angela, and obviously
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
mean you. I'm just saying if that offends you, I'm sorry, but maybe turn that microscope inwards instead of focusing your entire attention outwards on the things that you don't like about a freaking political party. We have so much work to do. And for me personally, with what is coming down from this administration, we can't afford 1 second of infighting. Not one. Because we're the only party that can combat this. We have no affordability to be relaxed or have our energy directed in any other place than the state. Am I overblowing this or what?
No, I think you're correct. And I think it also really begs a question like, what are people's priorities? And do they actually want to realign their priorities? Is it something like they've lost sight of the mission? Or has the priority all along been to maintain a certain type of social club, and that's really it?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and if that's the case, then it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really challenging to say, "Hey, get your priorities right and join us," because they may just have a fundamental disagreement about the purpose of our organization.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I want to stay along those lines here as we kind of these are congruent topics really. Um, I want to talk about why people want to reject within our party the culture war and how we can lose or win this fight of liberty within the culture because I'm of the understanding and I'm watching this from an outsider watching all of the news,
Hmm.
maybe not an outsider in the Libertarian Party, but an outsider from the mainstream politics. We're watching this massive culture war happening right now. And I see a lot of libertarians saying, oh, well, we can't fight the culture war. And I'm thinking, if I want to influence a mass generation of future voters, then how in the world can I reject the culture war in lieu of just hemorrhaging future voters to either psychopathic, progressive, leftist neoliberals or pro police state neoconservatives? So, how are we supposed to move on if we just absolutely ignore the culture war when the entirety of America is engaged in it?
Right.
But we're supposed to do what? Just talk about laws that nobody cares about
Right.
in the current process.
So we've seen a few examples of this, right? So everybody is very up in arms over the war in Ukraine. And
Right.
I get it. Not a fan of Vladimir Putin by any means. Sorry.
Yeah, me
Sorry,
either.
Twitter trolls. I'm sure you're all, oh, no, Angela loves Putin. No, it's
Yeah,
okay to be
yeah,
anti war and not take a side, right?
right.
Um, I feel for the people in Ukraine. Now, at the same time, we've got other conflicts going on in the country that no one cares about. And when I kind of put the two, I compare and contrast them on social media, there's a ton of excuses. So if I'm like, why do people care about the war in Ukraine, but they don't care about the war in Yemen? the responses are horrifying. It's like, well, because, it's Ukraine and they're Westerners, so obviously we care more about Westerners. Or, oh, Yemen's just a civil war. Who cares what they do over there? Well, Putin's just worse. I, what's worse than like starving babies to death? I
Right.
don't understand. And so it's kind of interesting how people pick what they care about, right? Like,
Mm.
why do you think that is? Why
Yeah.
do you think people
I'll
care
tell.
about one thing, not the other?
Right. Yeah. I'll say this. I made this tweet the other day. Excuse me. Don't let the media dictate what you should be outraged about. And that's what's happening here. The media
Hmm.
doesn't cover Yemen, but they cover Russia. It's not about Ukraine, is it? Like,
No.
look deep inside y'all. Okay? We've been dealing with Russian media for a long time. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. If these people were truly outraged about human rights and the atrocities of war and our involvement in them, then we would talk about Ukraine, but we don't because people want to be outraged over Russia because that's what the media tells them.
So how do we operate within that kind of framework and convince people to be a libertarian? You've got a couple of things here, right? So you've got people are just like ready and willing to be controlled by a mainstream media narrative, even though we know mainstream media is a joke, and we've all witnessed it over the last couple of years. And
Yes.
and we have seen left people on the left who are political pundits like embarrass themselves and humiliate themselves on the news and get ridiculed. There was, what was his name, Jeffrey Tubin, with his,
That's right. Yeah, that thing.
but people are still willing to believe things that those institutions put out. It's kind of interesting. So that's sort of the framework that we're operating within. Is I think that people really believe that might equals right. And even when you have characters like Jeffrey Tubin or what's his name, Chris Cuomo, like humiliate themselves or get ratioed, they're not willing to let go of the beliefs associated with those people. And that makes it really challenging to advance liberty, especially if you're not willing to even engage culturally. Does that make sense? Because media is a big part of our
Yes.
culture. Unfortunately, we have, like, I think it's gross, but that's just, we have to operate within the framework of reality.
Yes. Yes. That's so freaking well said. Um, the operating within the framework of reality. That is massive because here's what I see these people not embracing when they say, oh, let's reject the culture war. We should be talking about this or that. Well, then you are not operating within the framework of reality. Because, again, if we want to change the direction and mindset of future voters, if we really want liberty to be on the ballot in future votes, then we have to be in the culture war.
Yeah.
We have to let people know that what you're watching in Ukraine and Russia is media driven. You're not paying attention to Yemen. You're not paying attention to the atrocities that the United States government and many other governments committed within Iraq, Iran, Ukraine, um, Afghanistan, Korea, Vietnam. This is a culture war in the fact that politics is downstream, or I'm sorry, yeah, no, that's right. Politics is downstream of culture, right?
Yeah,
It's culture first.
absolutely.
These people create policies based on what the culture of America is. So if you're living, and it's all based, I'm sorry to go on a rant. I want to give you back your time. But it just pisses me off that we're living in this world that the media and these politicians are dictating the culture of our mental atmosphere
Yep.
instead of us saying, this is what we want and this is what we dictate, and you're going to do what we say.
So let's compare and contrast a couple of issues here. We try very hard as libertarians to talk about Yemen. We have put out at the national level a couple of campaigns to get people to call and tell their congressmen and their senators to support the War Powers resolution to end our involvement in Yemen.
Amen.
It gets relatively low engagement, unfortunately. It's not a cultural hot button topic. When we engage at the national level on things like whether or not it's okay to chemically castrate your children, it gets a really high level of engagement because that's what people are paying attention to, because that is part of the culture war right now. Now, I wish that the Yemeni campaign got as much attention because, well, honestly, they both have to deal with killing children, with harming children. But you see what's in the news cycle, you know, and that's what gets it. And so if we want to really be, if we want to gain traction, we've got to engage where people are engaging culturally. Now, that means we should be very careful about how we engage, right? Like, we don't want to just be Republican light or Democrat light. We want to strike our own path. We want to be a libertarian.
Amen.
But that's where we got to do it. We got to speak to the issues that people actually care about. And then my hope is that once we do that and we establish like a serious presence, we can start controlling the narrative a little bit. And then people are going to care, you know, when the United States military is drone bombing the hell out of innocent families and children and weddings in the Middle East, because that stuff's vile. But we got to get their attention first, because we don't have their attention yet.
So how do we get their attention?
Oh man. So engaging culturally is one way, you know,
That's
we've
right.
got to do that. And we've got to be artful when we do it, and we've got to distinguish ourselves. And you got to use a lot of judgment deciding, you know, like which groups of people are going to be more inclined to liberty. And how do you want to reach out to them, and to what extent? So I personally believe it's a good strategy to play for the long game. So if there are people who are Republican light who are interested in libertarianism, I want to reach out to them. I want to engage them. I don't necessarily want them to flip the next day and join the party, because they're probably not 100% on board with us yet. They're just not. And that's okay, because we need to really build that up with them and make them like want to be part of our organization and to stand for liberty and to really understand it. The same thing I say to people who are on like the dissident left, or what I call the heretical left. They've basically been cast out of the Democratic Party and their social circles because they're economically on the left, but they believe in free speech. They're not down with woke stuff, and they were opposed to lockdowns. Those are people we got to reach out to as well. And
Amen.
same with people who are on the right. We got to use judgment on when we pull the trigger on inviting them to join the party. It's really good to just have an open dialogue with these people to start, so that we can genuinely like change their hearts and minds and show them that, hey, we really do care about the same stuff you care about.
Absolutely. I'll sum that up in one phrase: meet people where they're at, y'all.
Yeah.
Look, you cannot message to anybody if you're just pouring out your individual ideologue, right, or ideologue. You have to ask them where they care.
Yeah.
Meet people where they're at. Ask them what they care about. 100%. That's exactly what you're talking about. If we can't meet people where they're at, then we're never going to message liberty to them. So I'll ask you, I'll ask you this: how in the world do we talk about this? And I mean, like on an everyday basis, right?
Yeah.
Even on the internet or in real life. How do we talk to people where we have an entire atmosphere, both left, right, center, that's rejecting liberty?
Well, we got to find the people who do want to talk about it, I think, and find their pain points. So I had a really good conversation
Good.
with some of the leaders of the Movement for People's Party a couple weeks ago. And it turns out that, you know, these are guys who are basically like ex-Bernie bros. They are not down with woke ideology either. They don't like it. They want freedom. Now they care very much about having government health care. They want free Medicare for all. Like that's their passion point. So we basically talked about everything that we did agree with. And we asked questions like within the realm of healthcare, what can we agree on that's bad that we want to change? And kind of we move from there like, okay, so now we found things that we agree on, even on the biggest topic that we disagree on. What is the end goal? Is there a way that we can sort of work towards that and find policies and solutions that we might both agree with? And it's an ongoing dialogue, and it went really well, which is everybody wants to overlook these conversations that we have with people in movement for our People's Party and the Green Party. The truth is there are a lot of people on the left that we do outreach to, but that's really how you build trust, right? You have to build trust with people.
Yeah, you have to build trust. People don't care what you have to say until they know that you care.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
That's what we have to strive for. We have to meet people where they're at. It's a phrase that's been beat down into the ground so many times, but it's absolutely paramount. We have to meet people where they're at. And so, at this point, moving forward, how do we as a party, and you are the head of this party, just in my opinion, deservingly so. My wife and I were both rooting for you. Everybody can be pissed off about it. I don't care.
Thank you.
You're great. You're absolutely built for this. You're very welcome. Um, how do we move forward as a party in trying to make sure that we encompass all of that affection, that love, that patience, that understanding in grabbing people, or in other words, proselytizing people into the libertarian movement so that we can grab people's hearts and minds moving forward?
I think we need to take care of the members within our organization. There's definitely some work that needs to be done there. And I think that we really need to engage with people politically at the local level, because that's where you find people, by the way, who are already politically active and interested in making a change. Those are people who are ripe for conversion. And we've got to engage in the culture. And sticking our head in the sand and saying it's uncomfortable or we don't want to be seen to look like Republicans or Democrats that's a failing strategy. That's like sitting on the sidelines while everybody else scores a bunch of points. Like you got to get in the game. You got to get in the game, and if you're not sure how to do that, then you just need to find someone else who's good at it and start studying under them. It's really the path forward.
Yeah.
Because I want to see, right? I want to see liberty in my lifetime. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want my child or maybe my children to grow up in a dystopian. I don't want anyone else being born now to experience lockdowns. I never want that for them, or a draft, or a military draft.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I 100% agree with all that. Military draft, lockdowns, the current continuation of the military industrial complex, the current continuation of extremism when it comes to governmental overreach. I don't want any of that. I have 3 kids. You've got 1 so far, I think. Um, this is a path that we fight adamantly, okay? Not giving up. We're not taking a breath. This is something that we have to do, and we have to do it now. So, with that being said, Angela, you're a very busy woman. You're recently engaged and very pregnant, very busy. Thank you so much for joining the show. How can people help you specifically and the party get to where we need to be?
Thank you. So you can go to lp.org if you would like to join the party, or if you want to become a monthly donor. Even donating $5 a month is a fantastic way to help us. If you want to help me out, you can go to patreon.com/Angela McArdle. I love to get input and feedback on what the National Party is doing there. You can see my thoughts. You can see me drop strategy documents. All kinds of interesting stuff on woke ideology. Doing a deep dive on that and why it's important. I'll be doing some stuff on culture and community building there too.
How can we find that content?
Oh, that is at patreon.com/Angela McArdle.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angela. You're a very busy woman. You're doing great things. Thank you for pushing the fire of liberty forward and igniting that flame even further. You're absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Angela, chair of the National Libertarian Party, for coming on the show again for the third time. Last time she was on the show, we had the LNC debate, which last I checked was the highest rated viewership debate online. And so we have work to do, period. That's what she's saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what the vast majority of the people that are mature and have dealt with things in real life, not just spending our every waking freaking second on trying to root out anything that you don't like about the Libertarian Party. We don't. Grow up. We have a real fight. And if you're the one stuck in the back seat of the bus, still trying to argue with what LP National and the Mises Caucus and everybody else is doing, then you are 100% doing a disservice to everyone that you claim that you're fighting for. Full stop. Full stop. Grow up. This is real. We have things to do. We have work to do. We have things to accomplish. We have work to accomplish. Okay? Follow Angela. Follow LP National. Let's get on board and let's figure out exactly how on earth we're going to be able to fight this massive authoritarian state that we have right in front of us and right on our plate. What are you going to do about it? I know what I'm going to do. Keep going. Period. Not going to stop. I hope you're on board. I love you. I love every one of you very much. I'll see you Wednesday, same Cajun time, same Cajun channel. Again, I love you very, very much. And I am out.